Hey, this is Ant bringing you a Unreal Engine 4 tutorial. So in this video we're going to create a missile launcher. This video will continue off from the first part, which is make a homing missile, which I'll link in the description below, but before we go into the tutorial I will quickly demonstrate what the missile launcher will do. So it does a sphere trace, it locks on, and then it will start to fire. And as you can see, it's spawning the rockets. And when you go outside of a certain arc, it will basically stop firing. So as you can see, it's got locked on and it's just continually firing home the Seeker missiles at me. So without further ado, we'll go into the tutorial now. So welcome to part 1 of this missile turret launcher tutorial. So in this video we'll be setting up the initial rotation of the turret so that it'll rotate towards the target. But first, before we go into that, I want to just go quickly into the missile that we'll be using. I'll link the tutorial how to make this missile in the description below, but there's something I just wanted to make sure of, and that's to make the speed of this missile frame rate independent. And I'll quickly show that now in the missile. I'll also link the GitHub for this as well, for all the assets. So what's happening is, currently this has been set to a speed here, and it's set to 100, which is quite fast, but the problem is it's not frame rate independent. So I'm just quickly going to grab the delta seconds here, drag that off, and then I'm going to get a float multiplied by float. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to disconnect the speed variable, connect it here, and then I'm just going to increase the speed value up to 400, save that, and I'm just going to quickly hit play. And the missile now is frame rate independent, and I'll just adjust the speed so it's a bit faster. Check it's not publicly decoded. Oh, it's still on 200 there. Set it to 600 here, and as you can see, it's now tracking at the correct speed. So for this tutorial we'll be creating a missile launcher stroke turret here. So as I said before, the resources for the sprites and what's used in this tutorial will be linked in the description below. And for the turret, if we open that up now, all it is, it's a simple paper sprite with an arrow component. So we'll get into the programming of that now. So we'll want an event begin play, and what I want to do is I want to just basically get the initial rotation of this actor, and that's just something that the turret can rotate back to once it's finished tracking towards its current target. I'm going to promote that to a variable, and I'm going to call that an initial rotation. Okay, so now that I've got that, next thing that I want is an active variable, and I want that to be called current target. Make it editable now for debugging, and then just drag that in using control. Doing it, is it a valid reference check? And if it's valid, I want to just get another variable which is a boolean, and that's going to be called has target. Drag that holding Alt, and if it is valid, set that to true. So event begins play, it gets the initial direction which it's facing, sets that of the actor, and then sets the initial rotation. And then it'll check to see if it has a current target selected. If that's valid, set the current target for true. Next thing we need to do is we need to code the turret so that it'll rotate towards the target when it has one, and it will rotate towards its default initial rotation when it doesn't. So to do that we'll be using the event tick. So first thing we need is, well, I'm going to do a check on this boolean to say does it have a target. I'm going to drag out a branch from that. If it doesn't have a target, then we ideally want the turret to rotate to where it needs to go. So what I'll do is get the actor forward vector, From that we want to vector interpolate to, and we need a rotation to send so we can rotate back to that. And of course, because we want to go back to where it started, we're going to use this initial rotation, get the forward vector for that, drag that into the target, and then what we're going to do is we're going to get the delta seconds here, and as for the interpolate speed, we'll promote that to a variable, and we'll rename that, and we'll call it rotation speed. Hit compile, and currently set to 0, so I'll just give that a value, so let's give it a value of 10. So it should rotate 10 degrees every second. So what we need to do next is we need to get a rotation from X vector, and we need to set the actor rotation to false. So I say the event ticks regulating it. If it has a target, we'll do that bit next, but if it hasn't, it'll just rotate the turret to its initial start position. Okay, so for the last bit of code for this section, we're going to just do the bit where it'll rotate if it has a target. So what we need to do is, first off, we need to just use the similar maths that we used in the missile, which is we need to get the direction of the current target. So we do that by getting the target location, so get out to location, we get the location of this actor or target itself, and we subtract these from each other. We promote that to a variable, and we're going to call that target direction. What we do next is we get the target direction and we normalize it, and we just set it again. Okay, so if this is true, we've got this. So now we need to obviously get the rotation, the actor's current rotation, and interpolate the direction from it. So what we need to do is we need to get the actor forward vector, we need to do a vector interpolate to, and we want the target direction. And again, well, we want delta time, so we can drag off this into delta time, and we've already got a variable for rotation speed. Put that into interpolate speed, and then what we want from this, we want rotation from X factor. There was a little tiny mistake in the before where I've used the wrong node. It's not make rot from X, it's rotation from X vector. So just quickly replace that onto there. And then what we want to do is, last part of the puzzle, we want to set the actor rotation. And then just quickly connect that. So as a quick recap, so obviously connect the branch to this, drag these down, try and tidy them up a bit. So if has target is true, get the current target location, subtract it from the current actor's location or the turret location to set direction, normalize the target direction, and then set the actor rotation based on the target direction from the direction the actor is currently facing, based on rotation and delta speed as well. And then I'll set the actor rotation here. Okay, so now that that's done, it's time to test the missile. So what I'm going to do is quickly just go into the arrow key, and I want to basically make it so that you can see it when the game's played, so you can see the arrow. So go into the turret itself, move it somewhere a bit more visible. Using the eyedropper, select the player character, and I'm going to hit play. And as you can see, the turret is rotating towards the player, it's following it around if you have a look at the arrow. However, it's doing it a bit fast, so let's just quickly update the rotation speed. So let's just change it down to 1, and why not, we can make this instance editable as well. Hit compile save, hit play. And there you can see that it's slowly rotating to where it needs to go, which is following the player. So that brings us to the end of part 1. So in part 2 we'll look at creating a scanning system for the turret, so that it just doesn't just follow based on a target set at the beginning. It'll scan for the player and lock onto him using a hit result. So I'll see you in part 2.